She walked into Lyon's train station like she belonged there. German soldiers at every entrance, eyes scanning every face, hands checking every paper. Not one of them looked at her twice. That was not luck. That was the plan. Her name was Virginia Hall, Baltimore-born, fluent in French, German, and Italian, ambitious in a way that didn't fit quietly inside the world she was handed. She wanted to serve her country as a diplomat. The State Department said no, not because of her intelligence, not because of her languages, because of her leg. In 1933, a hunting accident in Turkey cost her the lower half of her left leg. Surgeons replaced it with a wooden prosthetic she eventually named Cuthbert, because 3 years of walking on something tends to make it feel like a companion. The government decided a woman with a wooden leg was unfit for service. She decided they were wrong. She just found a different kind of service. Britain's special operations executive needed someone who could disappear inside Nazi-occupied France, someone who could build a network of informants and helpers without ever looking like that's what they were doing. Someone no one would look at twice. They found her. She arrived in Lyon in August 1941. Journalist cover, hidden radio set, contact name Marie. Real mission, build an intelligence network inside Vichy France and keep it running for as long as the war required. No backup, no guaranteed exit. She got to work. It started small. A priest who hid messages inside his sermons, a pharmacist who stored forged documents behind aspirin boxes, a hotel owner whose basement became a secret shelter for shot-down Allied airmen who needed to disappear before the Germans found them. She connected these people. She became the invisible thread between all of them. Every morning, she ran the same calculation before she got dressed. Who hadn't made contact? Which route might be compromised? Which safe house had seen too much traffic? She never stopped running it. Because the moment she stopped, people died. London started sending money. She distributed it, paying safe house operators, bribing railway workers for information, funding an escape route over the Pyrenees into Spain. In her first 3 months, her network moved 14 Allied airmen safely out of France. London sent back 2 words: outstanding. Then the Gestapo learned she existed. Not her name, not her face, just the shape of her, a pattern. A woman with a cane who appeared in cafes and disappeared from them, always connected, at a careful distance, to missing agents and disrupted German operations. His name was Klaus Barbie, head of the Gestapo in Lyon, later known as the Butcher of Lyon for what he did to the people he caught. He started hunting her. His informants called her La Dame qui boite, the limping lady. She found out within 48 hours. She didn't run. She adopted. She practiced altering her gait until Cuthbert's rhythm on the pavement sounded different. She changed cafes, cover stories, and streets. She became a social worker, then a magazine correspondent, then whoever the room required. But the network was bleeding. Couriers arrested, safe houses compromised, people she had trusted going silent without explanation. She burned her apartment, moved the radio, rebuilt. Because the alternative was doing nothing. And doing nothing was never something she was capable of when people were loaded onto trains. November 1942. Germany invaded Vichy France. The last thin illusion of safety vanished overnight. London sent one word: evacuate. She packed in 2 hours and joined a group heading south on foot toward Spain. The Pyrenees in November nearly killed people who were perfectly healthy. She was crossing them on a wooden leg. The prosthetic wasn't built for frozen mountain passes in the dark. Every uneven rock was a risk, every icy patch a potential fall that could break the mechanism and end everything. She fell twice on the first night. She got up both times, said nothing about the pain. At some point during the crossing, she transmitted a brief message to London. "Cuthbert is giving me trouble, but I hope to manage." London, not knowing Cuthbert was her leg, responded practically, "If Cuthbert is proving too difficult, have him eliminated." She allowed herself one moment of dark laughter on a freezing mountain in the middle of the night. Then she kept walking. 3 days later, she crossed into Spain. The British got her out. She debriefed in London for weeks. Then America came calling. The OSS, predecessor to the CIA, wanted her back in France, deeper this time, more dangerous. The Germans had gotten better at finding operatives. The window was closing. Nobody would have blamed her for saying no. She said yes. This time they remade her completely. Gray hair, peasant dress, heavy shoes, the rural dialect of Auvergne, the specific unglamorous French of a woman who had never left her farming village and had nothing interesting about her whatsoever. She practiced shuffling, hunching, wearing exhaustion in her face and shoulders. The woman who stepped back into France in March 1944 was unrecognizable. That was the only reason she survived what came next. D-Day was coming. She could feel it in London's transmissions, the urgency, the specific targets, the unmistakable weight of something enormous being prepared. She was in the Haute Loire region now, cover name Marcelle Montagne, a farm woman who sold cheese and attracted no attention from anyone. In 3 months, she had built a new network from nothing. Farmers, woodcutters, young men hiding in the hills to avoid Nazi labor conscription. She trained them to destroy railway lines, to ambush supply convoys and vanish back into the civilian landscape, to communicate through layers so one arrest couldn't collapse everything. She stood in dark fields at 3 in the morning, guiding parachute drops of weapons and explosives down out of the night sky. By the time Allied forces landed at Normandy on June 6, 1944, her groups had cut railway lines, destroyed bridges, and tied down German units Berlin desperately needed elsewhere. She did that, from a farm, in gray hair and a peasant dress, and a wooden leg that creaked in the cold. Barbie never found her. The liberation came in August 1944. She was 38 years old. She had spent 3 years inside Nazi-occupied Europe. She had helped over 100 Allied airmen escape from France. She had built networks the Germans tore at and never fully destroyed. She trained hundreds of resistance fighters who fought at the most critical moment of the war. When the celebrating crowds filled the streets of Lyon, not one person in them knew her face. That had always been the design. The OSS awarded her the Distinguished Service Cross, the highest civilian military honor in America. President Truman wanted a public ceremony. She declined. She was still active. The cover still mattered. Virginia Hall died in 1982 at 76 in Maryland. She gave no interviews. She never wrote a memoir. She remained until the end exactly what the war had made her: contained, disciplined, and impossible to fully know. The CIA hung her portrait in their headquarters. She is one of the most decorated female operatives in American intelligence history. Most people have never heard her name. Here is what Barbie never understood, what none of them ever understood. Every assumption they made worked against them. They assumed a disabled woman was limited. She used that assumption to walk through checkpoints that stopped able-bodied men. They assumed the limp made her trackable. It was the best cover she ever had. They weren't looking for someone wearing their weakness openly. They were looking for someone trying to hide it. She wasn't hiding anything. She was standing right in front of them, every single day, and they never once saw her.